That was Bruno Todd's answer to the question, why do you like fountain pens and collect them? I was examining my latest acquisitions the other day, and then it occurred to me, there's a trend going on here. I own several glittery pens. I'm not a glittery person. If you saw me today, I'm sitting here in dark jeans and a dark t-shirt, which is pretty much my uniform. What kind of weird turn did my life take in which I owned these pens? And then I thought about it a little harder, and I realized I have a lot of pink pens. I now suspect that fountain pens were the gateway to my inner unicorn. It started in 2014 when the Goulets released their Edison Nouveau Premier Cherry Blossom. I had never seen a pink pen, and I thought it was actually kind of funny. Back then, before they had a lot of pink pens, I thought getting one would make me kind of edgy. Little did I know that I would become a pink pen person. This pink thing made me think a little bit more about my collection. I'm in a little bit of a dilemma over several pens. Everybody knows what this pen is. I was very excited when I got it and wrote with it a lot. But after a while, I realized that it wasn't in my rotation as much. I figured maybe it was just a small sweet spot, so I had Mike Masuyama work on it. And again, I used it a lot, and then again, it just kind of fell out of my rotation. So then I had Mr. Nagahara, the nib shaper, work on it, and again, I used it a lot, and it fell out of rotation again. As much as I love this pen, I think it's that I love the idea of this pen. I love the way it feels, where the machining is so good that it's hard to tell where the piston knob is. I think it's the lack of a distinct section that makes it difficult for me to write with. But I keep thinking, it's a Lamy 2000. It's an iconic pen. I should have one. It's the same with my Delta Dolce Vita. I don't have an orange pen, and I also collect minerals, and the center band there is made of sterling silver, and that's a mineral, so it combines my two interests, inks and rocks. There's nothing wrong with the pen. I think it's just kind of got a blah nib, and I don't use it. But it's a Dolce Vita, and it's got sterling silver on it. That's a mineral. Sell it or keep it. The next decision is a little more difficult. It's a Pilot Grants. It's a pen that my daughter would occasionally use when she was younger to try to be like her mom. It's slender enough for small hands, and it's actually a pretty nice pen. It's a snap cap and has a nice, soft, bouncy nib. But I haven't used it in years. Sell it or keep it. And this last one is a Sailor 1911 with a Naginata Togi nib made by Nagahara Sr. Apparently, this nib is sought after by Japanese collectors. They can tell the difference between the nib made by Yukio Nagahara and his father. I'm not so much into Togi nibs, and so do I sell it or keep it? This all led me to the questions of, am I a collector? And if so, what are the rules for collecting? So I threw out a general question, why do you collect fountain pens, to several groups that I belong to. I also did several polls asking the same kind of question. I got 400 different poll responses and comments. Some of the comments were several pages long. Though that felt like an almost overwhelming bunch of information to go through, I really enjoyed seeing what everybody had to say. Let me run through some of the poll numbers and then also some of the comments, and then in the end, maybe you can help me out whether or not I should sell or keep some of these pens. The number one answer by far was you collect pens for the enjoyable writing experience. Assistive Tech from Fountain Pen Addict says simply, I really enjoy the feeling of writing with a fountain pen. The second most popular answer was the beauty of the fountain pen itself. Mirai Cat says, I'm limiting my collection to sparkly Sailor Pro Gears with light socks. She means end caps. She says I'm a user first, but then it became a collection in a blink of an eye. I find that so true. Which brings us to the third most popular answer. I'm not a collector, I'm a user. Colors and Beads even asked me why people collect pens or why people use pens. She was trying to clarify. When a non-fountain pen user asks me what my hobbies are, I think I almost always answer I collect fountain pens, not so much I use fountain pens. I guess I'm really asking, why do you like fountain pens so much that you have more than one? And the fourth most popular answer was self-expression. Though it was fourth, this is where I got most of my comments. Bebox says he enjoys using them for his art. Maria says I want to try different pens for artwork. And eJoy says it gives me a deeper connection to my artistic side. The fifth most popular poll response was historical reasons to preserve history. To tell you the truth, it took a long time for me to understand this one, but then I became friends with Bruno Tott and he said it the most eloquently. As more people become interested in fountain pens and buy these older pens and then modify them, there are less and less unmodified pens to preserve the history of that pen. And as Bruno doesn't modify anything, he pretty much is the keeper of the flame. He wrote, I discovered I was a collector when I bought a pen I knew I would never ink. That is a pen from around 1910 in pristine condition with the original sticker price still attached to it. I write my first draft of all my blog entries with a fountain pen. That pen is always described at the end of the text. That's an interesting tidbit about his blog, Chronicus Stylographicus. And on the flip side is one of our young guns, a rip, zip, clip kind of guy, CY. As he says, a fountain pen is a machine. He says there is a lot of debate about steel versus gold, 14K versus 18K versus 21K, etc. But for me, the key is in the grind. I will not keep a pen that has a standard F, M, or B. The kind of pens that do not make his list are cartridge, converter, Japanese eyedropper, anything involving sacks, anything involving blind caps, anything steel nibbed. He is pretty much, Mr. Frankenpen, a couple of which I own. I think he has 2 of my pens now, or rather parts of my pens. There were some comments that a lot of people agreed with that were not part of my poll. Jonathan says, I'm a software developer and spend a large percentage of my life in front of the computer. Fountain pens give me a much needed break from my digital life. Chewbacca says, it's nice to have a break from the digital everything. Amy says, in a digital world, you should choose the best of analog to have. And Chi says, turning the digital switch off for a few moments and having to concentrate on nothing but a nib scratching on nice paper is a great detox. Then there were a lot of reasons that I didn't even think of to ask people, but they made a lot of sense. Using fountain pens allows Denise to write without pain. Amanda had trouble with her grip, and fountain pens helped improve her handwriting. And Veronica says it supports her zero-waste lifestyle. And then there's color. I used to tell people that I'm a better person after I've had a cup of coffee. I was happier and the world just looked brighter. It turns out there's some science behind that. Apparently, caffeine dilates your pupils. But I'm wondering if some people are able just to see colors better than others. Listen to what Dan says. I am simply into different color pens, and that goes with my interest in ink. I like grayish blue, blue-greens, pinks, oranges. I also have many brownish greens, some green golds, especially the darker ones. I hate burgundy, violet, tanzanite, plain old browns, light yellows, royal blues, medium and dark indigos, forest greens, and medium greens with pretty much only green in them. I'm pretty sure Dan just sees colors that I don't see. When someone asks me what my favorite color of ink is, I usually just say blue. And then there were people that gave rather contemplative answers. Carlos says that fountain pens forces me to slow down and focus on just one thing. Bong says, I like using a fountain pen because it can reflect your feelings in what you have written. And Rika Andrea says, each of my pens have a personality. And then you've got the outliers. Max uses fountain pens to be contrary and weird. And the biggest outlier collector, probably Jacob. This is what he says. I'm perhaps more of a trader than a collector. I enjoy trying new pens, but I find selling and thus curating to be just as satisfying as buying. What he really means is that he rents pens. Most people try to limit the number of inked pens they have to say maybe below 10. Jacob tries to limit the number of pens he owns to like 10. I'm pretty sure there have been some instances where he's received a pen in the morning and then packed it up and sold it by that evening. So with this thorough navel-gazing about why we collect or use pens, what should I do? The Lamy 2000, which is an iconic pen but doesn't quite fit my writing style. Sell it or keep it. The Delta Dolce Vita that has a mineral around the center band. Sell it or keep it. The Pilot Grants that my daughter occasionally used when she was younger. Sell it or keep it. The Sailor 1911 with the Naginata Togi nib done by Nagahara Sr., which is a collector's nib. Sell it or keep it. Using your own criteria for collecting fountain pens, leave me a note in the comments on whether or not you think I should sell or keep some of these pens, and let me know why you collect fountain pens.